Good morning. My name is Amanda Rivera. I'm the hearing examiner presiding over today's case. The date is May 14th, 2025, and this is case SEZ2025-00002. It's a special exception request for property on Aqua Lane for a height increase to a boathouse. Because this is a quasi-judicial hearing, all evidence and testimony must be taken under oath. So if you intend to speak, if you could please raise your hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you will provide is the truth?
I do.
Thank you. And I believe there are no members of the public, correct, sir?
Me, I'm public.
Okay. Are you a neighbor?
I own the house. I bought it after the fact.
So you're the owner? Okay, that was my understanding.
The current owner.
And I just ask, there's instructions that we give for members of the public if they're here, but if they're not, then I will dispense with that and we can begin with the applicant. Have they explained the process of how the proceedings go? Okay, then whenever you're ready.
I'm Brent Stokes, the owner of Stokes Marine. We built
You could come to the podium. I'm sorry, they adjusted our, yes, thank you. You won't be caught otherwise if you're here.
Good morning. I'm Brent Stokes, the owner of Stokes Marine. We were contracted a number of years ago, I think it was 8 or 10 years ago now, to originally build the dock and the boat lift that's at this particular property. It was a different homeowner at the time, went under contract, built the dock, got the permits, and got most of the inspections. The one inspection we did not get was for the boathouse. The boathouse has a separate permit and a separate inspection from the dock and the boat lifts. We called in for the inspection. We were told that we needed an as-built, and the as-built was never completed, never turned in. That inspection was never closed. Flash forward to the end of the year last year, December, January, when you closed.
January.
I get a call from the homeowner. I get a call from the realtor. Hey, Brent, there's an open permit on this. We're about to go to closing. How quick can we get it done? No problem, I'm on it. We call, look it up. Hey, we never got an as-built. Call the surveyor, get the surveyor out there. Need an as-built, need it quick. Do me a favor, help me out. They're trying to close. Quick closing. As-built comes back too high. 22.3 feet. County code says top of the roof needs to be 20 feet. Okay. Got a realtor that's a long-term client of mine. Got a seller that's a long-term client of mine. I want to help. I don't want to hold the closing up. I offered to put money into escrow to lower it, assuming that I would first come down the path of applying for, I didn't know if it was going to be a variance or what have you, to keep the height. So, hey guys, I'm going to try to keep the height. If it doesn't work, here's money in escrow that I won't leave you with a problem, and I'll come and lower it. At the end of the day, it's been out there for 9 or 10 years. I'm not aware of there being any issues. Most of the neighbors are also clients of mine. He's made friends with most of the neighbors. No one's had any concerns with it. John runs our permitting department, put the application together for this, went through all the questions regarding the LEED plan and how it coincides with or doesn't coincide with the LEED plan. I'd love to tell you that we built it at a higher height for some strategic reason, light shed or seagrass or surge of water elevation and boats floating all over the county from Hurricane Ian. That's not the case. I don't know why it was built that high. Quite frankly, it was probably a mistake. But it is what it is at this point. I really don't want to lower it. We can, but I don't think it serves any good. And hindsight being 2020 with what we saw from Hurricane Helene and Milton and Ian, I think it makes more sense to be higher. And I'm hopeful that's the perspective this morning and that the approval can follow that perspective.
Can you just walk me through the timing a little? It was a 2016 permit from what I could tell. So was it existing at the time of Ian, and was there a boat in that location? There was some discussion about exactly what you just said.
It was existing during Ian, no doubt about it. We can check on LIPA aerial and verify that, but no doubt about it, it was existing prior to Ian. I don't know if the homeowner, Mr. Hirschberg's the prior owner. I don't know if he had a boat on it during Ian or not. I don't know. There is a boat lift under that boathouse. So it's possible he did. It's possible he didn't. I'm not sure.
I can answer some of that if you want me to.
If you want to come forward, yes.
My name's Robert Weber. I'm the current owner. It was prior to Ian. It did not sustain any damage. And my theory is that, and here's a view from the looking from the dock, I'm thinking that they measured from the bottom being the height of it, and you've got about the additional 2 foot in the risers in the roof, and that's the only reason I can think that maybe they made the mistake. But I've walked the neighborhood, and because we got the big Z sign in my front yard, all the neighbors have been like, well, what are you doing? What are you doing? I said, no, it's because of the roof being too high. They're like, what? So it's like a non-issue to the neighbors or me. If anything, it makes my boat look retarded because I got a very small boat sitting next to it. So it's, I don't have a problem with it. It's just the only thing I haven't done is I haven't repaired the dock since then because I want to wait to see what happened here before you did anything. And I don't think you can get a permit while one's in a battle.
We got an open permit on the boathouse right now, so applying for a permit for the dock to do the repairs because the dock structure does have some damage from the storm. The boathouse was not damaged from the storm, but the walkway leading out from the seawall to the boathouse does have some damage from the storms. It hasn't been repaired yet. So for what it's worth, we do get requests on a daily basis to build the docks on the river at a higher elevation than the last 6 or 8 months, right? Most of the area after Hurricane Ian chalked it up to a once-in-a-lifetime event storm, and we rebuilt the majority of the docks the same way they were built prior to the hurricane. Similar elevations, similar bolting, bracing, strapping, pile penetration, you name it. Since Helene and Milton, especially since these docks aren't insured, right? These homeowners are coming out of pocket 2 times now inside of 3 years. Hey, what can I do to make it more resilient? Well, one of the answers is raise the elevation. So if we're raising the elevation of the framing and the decking, in theory, we would need to raise the elevation of the boathouse roof, or we're going to start getting too tight between the lower band of the boathouse and the framing and decking elevation. So if that bears into the decision this morning, conversation we were having right before you walked in with Mr. Weber is when I repair that dock, I want to raise the elevation. So he's no different than the majority of our waterfront customers these days, especially the folks on the natural waterways versus the artificial canals. So from my perspective, it's pretty simple. Yes, it's 2.3 feet higher than the code. We're not debating that or suggesting anything otherwise. And our request is pretty simple. Can we leave it at this height? It's been out there for about 10 years and it hasn't had a concern or bothered anybody. And if we really wanted to make a real argument for it from a logistics perspective, it's only better from a light shed perspective for environmental resources perspective, and it's only better from a resiliency perspective from Mother Nature. So that's all I got, unless you got more questions.
Thank you. I do not, so we'll hear from the staff next, and then if there's questions after that, thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Good morning. And Brianna, I forgot to ask for the affidavit of publication. Do you happen to have that?
I was about to give that to you.
Thank you.
You want me to give this to you now? Do you want me to
You
go ahead?
could, yes, I'll review that. And then I will label that Staff Exhibit 2. Thank you.
There's my presentation for you.
Okay, thank you very much. So Staff Exhibit 1 was the staff report, and then Staff Exhibit 2 will be the affidavit, and Staff Exhibit 3 will be the presentation. Give me just one moment, please.
You got the same thing right here, don't you?
This is the staff
Our staff
report.
report, yeah.
Okay, and I am ready to proceed whenever you are. Thank you.
Good morning, Madam Hearing Examiner. For the record, my name is Brianna Schrader. I'm a planner with the zoning section of community development. I have been previously been accepted as an expert witness in the Lee County Land Development Code and Comprehensive Plan and wish so to do again today.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, what I have here today is SEZ2025-00002. It's a special exception request by Stokes Marine on behalf of the owner, Robert A. Weber, to allow for a boathouse to exceed the maximum allowed height of 20 feet above the mean high water line by 2.3 feet. LDC Section 26-71 C2I requires a special exception to allow a boathouse to be up to 35 feet in height above the mean high water line. This request is seeking for the total height to be 22.3 feet above the mean high water line. LDC sections 34-622 and 34-1863 establish that the boathouse is classified as a residential accessory use and is permitted pursuant to LDC Section 34-694. The subject property is 951 Aqua Lane. It's approximately less than an acre in area and is located west of McGregor Boulevard, south of Midpoint Bridge, southwest of Colonial Boulevard. The subject property also abuts a natural water body known as the Caloosahatchee River, and the submerged lands located at the subject property has been found to be under a private deed and does not have a submerged land lease. As provided to you earlier, there is an active permit, dock and shoreline permit DSH 2016-00317, and we'll talk about that more in this presentation. The subject property is within the suburban future land use category in accordance with the LEAP plan and is zoned residential, more specifically within the RS1 zoning district. When it comes down to the surrounding area, properties north, east, and south are within the suburban future land use category and within the RS1 zoning district and are developed with at least one dock and some with a boathouse and a dock. To the west, the subject property abuts the natural water body known as the Caloosahatchee River. The residential single-family district boundary extends into the river but does not have a designated future land use category. LDC Section 26-74 establishes special regulations such as setback, location, the design criteria, height, permitted uses, boathouse decking, enclosure requirements, and wind load standards for boathouse and docks. Back when this boathouse had been constructed, an error had happened at the time of construction as provided to you, and the boathouse was constructed over the permitted height of 20 feet, which resulted in a failed inspection, and a note was made on the permit by staff identifying the issue. The applicant had provided an elevation plan as shown here, which confirms the current height of the boathouse, thereby requiring this request. Shortly before Hurricane Ian made landfall in September of 2022, the Lee County Board of County Commissioners adopted Ordinance 22-24, which included amendments to allow the increase in the height of a boathouse to be sought through the special exception process, which is why they are here today. Additionally, Land Development Code Section 26-46C allows for specified departures from the standards contained in LDC Section 26-74 to be requested through the special exception approval process in accordance with the LDC Sections 34-145C3 and 34-145C3E. Provided here is some additional information on the property. Although LDC Section 26-74C2I allows for a special exception to permit a boathouse to be taller than 20 feet above the mean high water line, LDC Section 26-46C establishes that this approval cannot happen prior to the issuance of a building permit for a principal structure. The applicant provided a site plan that acknowledges a principal structure already being on site. Additionally, Lee County staff had found records that indicate that the home has been in place since 2012 through residential permit RES 2012-02031 and has received a certificate of occupancy. Around the same time the dock and shoreline permit for the boathouse was issued, two separate dock and shoreline permits, as shown here, were issued and have since had a final inspection and have been closed out. The scope of work for these permits would replace the seawall cap and construct a new dock and two boat lifts. The applicant has made clear that they are planning on submitting another dock and shoreline permit in the future to replace the current dock after the most recent storm. Land Development Code Sections 34-145C3 and 34-145C3E establishes the review criteria for special exception requests. The following slides provide how the applicant has met the review criteria. Lee Plan Policy 1.1.5 describes that the suburban future land use category will consist of predominantly residential areas that are either on the fringe of the central urban or urban community future land use categories, or in areas where it is appropriate to protect existing or emerging residential neighborhoods. The subject property and land surrounding it are already developed for residential use, which is consistent with this Lee Plan policy. Objective 2.6 of the Lee Plan establishes that development in coastal areas is subject to the additional requirements found in the conservation and coastal management element of this plan, particularly those found under Goals 72, 73, and 101. Goal 72 and Objective 72.2 of the Lee Plan aims to prevent and mitigate threats from natural disasters by reducing their potential impact on future development and responding efficiently to disasters and hazards after the fact. Also, to maintain land development regulations that reduce the vulnerability of development from the threats of natural and man-made hazards. Goal 101 and Objective 101.1 of the Lee Plan is intended to protect human life along with current and future development from the impacts of coastal flooding. Also, aims to improve the function of natural systems as a defense against coastal flooding. Policy 101.1 and Policy 101.2, or 101.1.2, there's a lot of stuff going on in that, of the Lee Plan requires all development within the coastal high hazard area be compatible with the natural systems such as water retention and purification, wildlife habitat, primary productivity, and defense against coastal flooding, and aims to protect and conserve environmentally sensitive coastal areas that include, but are limited to, critical wildlife habitats, benthic communities, and marine grass beds. While the subject property is located within the coastal high hazard area, this request is to allow for a boathouse to exceed the allowed height of 20 feet above the mean high water line by 2.3 feet. Lee County has experienced new record heights with storm surges from recent hurricanes, so approval of this request will provide adequate elevation above the mean high water line to safely secure a vessel as defined in LDC section 26-41 and help prevent future impacts from the next natural disaster, while also preventing a man-made hazard to affect the surrounding property's environment, which is consistent with the Lee Plan goals, objectives, and policies provided here. Goal 123 of the Lee Plan manages coastal, wetland, and upland ecosystems and natural resources to maintain and enhance native habitats, floral and faunal species diversity, water quality, and natural surface water characteristics. This request is for an existing boathouse that was constructed in 2016, and pursuant to aerial imagery and Lee County records, there has been a boathouse on the property since 1975. Therefore, in addition to the issuance of dock and shoreline permits issued on the site, the Florida Department of Environmental Protection has authorized the impacts to surface waters by construction of the boathouse and dock through a general permit, which is consistent with this goal. Goal 5 and Policy 5.1.2 of the Lee Plan establishes that attractive and safe neighborhoods with a variety of price ranges will be guided by the future land use map and will prohibit residential development where physical constraints or hazards exist or require density and design to be adjusted accordingly. Such constraints or hazards include, but are not limited to, flood, storm, or hurricane hazards or other characteristics that may endanger the residential community. Policy 5.1.5 of the Lee Plan aims to protect existing and future residential areas from any encroachment of uses that are potentially destructive to the character and integrity of the residential environment. If potentially incompatible uses do not meet the buffer requirements established in Chapter 10 of the Land Development Code and are proposed in the form of a plan development or special exception, and generally applicable development regulations are deemed to be inadequate, conditions will be attached to minimize or eliminate the potential impacts, or where no adequate conditions can be devised, the application will be denied altogether. The subject property is developed with a single-family residence. The existing boathouse does not impact any of the surrounding uses or increase density, and with the increased height sought by this request will not result in additional residential development. The location and increased height of the boathouse on the subject property will not have any visual impacts or restrict navigability in the natural water body with the surrounding properties, which is consistent with this Lee Plan goal and policies. As stated earlier, the site has been developed with a single-family home, and the size of the subject property is a minimum of 6,500 square feet in lot area. With the subject property being less than 10 acres in size, it is considered a small development. The environmental staff report establishes that pursuant to LDC sections 10-1 and 10-425, there are no open space, indigenous open space, and buffer requirements due to the size of the subject property being a minimum of 6,500 square feet in lot area. The special exception does not require any existing or proposed buffers on the site and will not require any buffers. LDC section 34-145C3E establishes that specified departures from the standard dock and shoreline regulations in Chapter 26, the hearing examiner must also find or conclude a finding that the proposed development is in compliance with the Manatee Protection Plan. Also, pursuant to LDC section 26-71A1, a single-family dock containing more than 2 slips must comply with the Manatee Protection Plan boat facility siting criteria. The dock and shoreline permits mentioned in this presentation and the site plan provided by the applicant establish that there are no more than 2 slips of the subject property. Therefore, the applicant did not need to provide a manatee protection plan and no subsequent evaluation is required. The recommended conditions for this case are provided here. 1, development must be in compliance with a site plan provided by Stokes Marine. The special exception approval grants the boathouse an additional 2.3 feet of height above the mean high water line, as shown on the elevation plan prepared by Stokes Marine. And the dock and shoreline permit DSH 2016-00317 for the existing boathouse must be inspected by staff to close out the permit and issue the certificate of occupancy. So to conclude today's presentation, the request to allow the existing boathouse to exceed the allowed height of 20 feet above the mean high water line by 2.3 feet is consistent with the goals, objectives, and policies set forth in the Lee County Comprehensive Plan. There are no environmentally critical or sensitive lands on the property, and the subject property is within the residential zoning district and is being utilized for residential purposes. The boathouse does not impede on visibility within the water body and does not affect the ability to navigate through the water body. A manatee protection plan is not required, and with the site plan provided by the applicant and the active dock and shoreline permit for the boathouse, with the exception for the final inspection, which is for the height, the applicant has met the requirements established in LDC sections 26-71 and 26-74, which is consistent with the review criteria established in LDC sections 34-145C3 and 34-145C3E, and staff recommends the approval of this request with the conditions provided and is here for any questions should you have any.
I do not. Thank you. That was a very thorough presentation and staff report, so I appreciate that.
You did a very nice job.
I have
Thank
a
you.
general question. It said in the narrative documents, this is a curiosity, not specific to this case, but it said that you were involved in the 2022 ordinance change that affected the special exception process to allow for this to go up to 35 feet, I think it was. Was there any appetite to increase the height? Because the base height is still going to be 20 feet, and your testimony today was that you're seeing this since all of these storm events, that a higher height is going to be warranted, so we're likely to see more of these cases. Has there been any discussion about just increasing it across the board for certain water bodies?
I believe it was myself, it was Hans Wilson, one of the marine engineers in town, Dan Stovall from Honstocks and Lifts, one of my competitors. You were in some of those discussions. Who else was there? Lots of county staff. It was more roundtable style discussion, and it was an entire review of the marine portion of the LDC. Correct me on the date, you might have it there, but I think it was before Ian.
That's what my
And I don't think any of the discussion at the time was focused around resiliency from hurricanes. It was more so focused on, hey, these codes haven't been revised in some time. What changes or improvements should we consider? We did make some changes for square footage allowances on the natural waterways. We did have a lot of discussion on boathouses about the total square footage allowed. As vessels have become larger, it's harder to shade them with a 500 square foot that we did make changes to and allowed for multiple boathouses up to 1,000, I think it is now. I don't recall there being a lot of discussion at that time on elevation for storm surge. If we were to do a review of the codes today and have those same people at the table, the majority of the conversation would be about resiliency. There would probably be no other topic. It would probably be 100% resiliency. So the landscape has changed so much in the last 2 or 3 years, particularly in the last 6 or 8 months. Like I said earlier, a lot of us, after Ian, kind of chalked that up to a once-in-a-lifetime event. And since Helene and Milton have just completely changed the mindset across the board. So every dialogue in my office these days, without exception, is resiliency is one of the main focuses. It used to be, I want a seating area and I want some shade and this is the boat I have coming and excited for the new boat, and oftentimes they just bought the house. The tone is completely different now. It's resiliency, resiliency, resiliency. So.
Thank you. I appreciate the background because the timing does seem to be right before Ian or around that time, and so the curiosity for me is if 35 feet was what was discussed and that's what's permitted up into the special exception and we're getting more of these, I would just advise maybe or caution or encourage that height be looked at, because if this is to be destroyed again, you're going to go back to the 22.3 feet, and if more is needed for safety concerns, then in future cases that might be something to consider.
We wouldn't be here this morning if the code were to just get changed across the board to pick a number, 25, 30, 35, whatever that number is.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And that's something that goes in, not to this case again, but just kind of a broader conversation that might need to be happening. And maybe it already is, I don't know. We only know the cases that we receive, but based on the testimony, that sounds like that might be.
The bigger discussion point at the time was the square footage. Myself and several other contractors, as well as several engineering firms, had a lot of heartburn about being restricted to 500 square feet. We walked out of that exercise when the final code was adapted with some relief to be able to go up to 1,000. I wish we'd had the foresight at that time to push for a bigger number to be just part of that code revision, but it didn't happen.
I wish we didn't need it. That would be.
Yeah, that'd be even better if we didn't need it.
But thank you, everybody, for coming. That concludes the hearings for today, unless there were any final comments that anybody wanted to make on the record.
When do we expect to have an answer?
I'm the final decision maker on these cases, so it will be sooner than later. Generally, we take them in the order that we have them, but I've got some rather lengthy cases ahead of this, and I don't want to hold you up because it sounds like this is essentially a check mark that needs to occur. So I am mindful of that, and I'll get it out to you as soon as I can.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.